It is time to breathe again on the latest BOFA Sports webcast streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So I am your host, Charles Taylor, and Patrick Brackett will not be with me this evening because he is out celebrating his son's birthday. So happy birthday to Patrick's son. And Patrick should be able to join us next week. Yeah, next week. So again, happy birthday to Patrick's son, and we'll just try to hold it down until he returns. But we have a lot of topics to cover, and we'll start in the NFL because it is coming up on the official time for free agency for players to sign wherever they want to sign as the league season, I guess, officially gets started next week. But, news is going to come out and things are going to be happening until that time actually becomes official. I guess some sort of a legal tampering period, as they want to call it. But already there's a lot of things happening. And we'll start with Matthew Stafford. He's going to re-sign with the Los Angeles Rams. Now, as you know, or for those of y'all who just started following the show, who just started watching this show, for the people who have been watching the show for a little while, y'all know Patrick and I, we do a pretty good job of keeping up with a lot of the stuff that is going on in sports. And just like anybody else, there might be some things we miss. We're human. There are some things that might not have hit the vision, and we hadn't been able to talk about it on a webcast or a shorty. And then there's other things where it's really not worth our time, really, to even go into it. This situation with Matthew Stafford, and I'm pretty confident in speaking for Patrick on this too. I'm sure he'll tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty confident this is one of those things that really wasn't worth the time. Matthew Stafford was going nowhere. All right, he was going to re-sign with the Rams. It wouldn't have made any sense for him to go anywhere else, especially when you consider the LA Rams were a drive away from knocking off the Philadelphia Eagles, who are, of course, the eventual Super Bowl champions, in a snowstorm in Philadelphia. So the Rams had a couple of things. They couldn't stop Saquon Barkley. That was one problem. But even with the big runs he was breaking off, the Rams had a chance to go into Philly and take that game to go on to the NFC Championship game. They just came up short. But Matthew Stafford going to some of these other teams that were thrown out there, the Las Vegas Raiders, give me a break. Why would he want to go there? The Raiders are nowhere close to being in any type of contention for a title. The New York Giants, why would you want to go to New York? Give me a break with the Giants. We know the Giants are nowhere close to competing in their division, let alone for a Super Bowl berth. And they can't keep quarterbacks healthy anyway. Their offensive line is terrible. Why would Matthew Stafford want to go there? The Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe that was a little bit intriguing, but even if he goes to Pittsburgh, does that make them, well, it makes them better, but does it make them better to the point they could contend with the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, even the Cincinnati Bengals or Houston Texans? Could they beat those teams with Matthew Stafford there? Like I said, they're better than they would have been with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, but it is loaded. That's my nice way of saying the AFC is totally loaded, and I don't know if he really moves the needle going over to Pittsburgh. Bottom line is there wasn't a better situation for Stafford or the Rams, for that matter, than to go ahead, reunite, and sign the deal so they can continue to try to get another Super Bowl added on to the one that they won in the 2021 season before Stafford retires or Sean McVay retires as a head coach. There was just, it didn't make any sense for a parting of the ways between the two parties. Again, they were close, and they got to the NFC divisional playoff round, and they were right there to beat the Eagles. You don't want to necessarily break that up. You probably want to add a little bit more to see if you can retool and make another run at it. You have a young defense there. You have weapons on offense, good offensive line. Just didn't make any sense. If Matthew Stafford chose to go in another direction or go to another team, or for the Rams to go ahead and try to go with somebody else. Who were they gonna go with if Matthew Stafford went away? Aaron, nice for you to come on. Yes, this is a solo show for tonight because Patrick is celebrating his son's birthday. So so we're rolling solo. But he should be back next week. But yeah, with the Rams, makes perfect sense for the Rams and Matthew Stafford to come together. So that deal will get done, and you'll see Stafford in the Rams uniform for next year. And we'll see what the Rams can do. They again, they have good young defense, and weapons on offense, a good offensive line, and Sean McVay is the coach. So why you would want to break that up, I don't know. But to me, this was never a doubt for me. I think the Rams were going to have Matthew Stafford coming on back. And sorry, Aaron, I know for you as a Cardinals fan, hell, for me as a 49ers fan, I would have loved to see Stafford leave. But it just didn't make any sense at all for him to go somewhere else or for the Rams to try to move on. There's no other quarterback out there that you were going to go with. Now, I know coaches are very, very, very stubborn. They have huge beliefs in their systems, and why shouldn't they? I mean, if they think their system is that good, then I understand the belief in saying I can get pretty much any quarterback in here to run the system, but not many people are going to run that system like Matthew Stafford would. And then on some other news, in free agency or / trades, so T. Higgins, the wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, they went ahead, and I guess they're going to put him on another franchise tag. This franchise tag is supposed to be a little bit over $26 million. And Patrick and I have talked about this when it comes to the franchise tag. Do you remember a few years ago when Kirk Cousins got 2 franchise tags from the Commanders, and then he signed the deal with the Minnesota Vikings after getting those franchise tags, and that was the first fully guaranteed deal, I think, in the history of the league, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to fact check that, but there hadn't been a deal like Kirk Cousins, like the one that he had signed with the Vikings before he signed it. And he did 2 franchise tags with the Commanders before that. Look, here's the deal. Here's the deal with the franchise tag. I think now, with the way business is going and the way things are just year to year anyway, I would play on franchise. If I was in the NFL, I would play on franchise tags every single season. If I'm not happy, then I'm gone after the year. I can find somewhere else to sign. And I get it. People want long-term security. I understand the security, the stability that comes with having a long-term deal, whether it's a 4 or 5 year deal. But if you're unhappy, which we know seems pretty inedible for a lot of these players, they get unhappy with the situation, and all of a sudden they want a trade request. They want to get on out. They don't want to stay here anymore. After a year or two within the deal, and you still have 2-3 years left on the deal that you signed with that long-term security. So if I'm T. Higgins, I get you want a long-term deal, but man, just play on that franchise tag. It's a very, very nicely paid franchise tag. Just go ahead, take that franchise tag, go ahead and play in it, play for another year, and you're gonna get a big payday, especially if you're playing the way you've been playing. When T. Higgins is in the lineup for the Bengals, they have a winning record. I think they were 8-4 with Higgins in the lineup last year, 1-4 without him. So the value is there for T. Higgins. Obviously, he's a big part of what the Bengals want to do, and it's probably imperative. Obviously, they're gonna try to sign Jamar Chase to a long-term deal. But it's imperative the Bengals try to bring these receivers back. And if they can stay healthy and their defense improves any little bit, the Bengals are just as dangerous as anyone else in the AFC. At quarterback, you have Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow led the team to a Super Bowl, almost led them to another one the year after that. Of course, they went to the Super Bowl the year that they lost to the Rams. And then they were within a field goal of beating the Chiefs the next season in the championship games. There's been a few struggles going forward. And last year, I mean, if the Bengals were able to win enough games to get into the playoffs, I mean, Burrow had an MVP caliber season. So the Bengals have the talent there. And I get contracts get in the way, the business part gets in the way. But if I'm T. Higgins, look, I'll play under a franchise tag this year. I'll play under a franchise tag next year and the year after that. I would do my whole contract on franchise tags. I'm still getting paid. I'm going to get whatever the market value is. I mean, this is a $26.2 million franchise tag. So I would totally do that. I'll totally sign into it. The long-term security of the deal, that will come, I'm sure, eventually. But until then, play on that franchise tag. And if you're not happy with the situation, you can go sign elsewhere. And nobody can tell you anything because you would be an unrestricted free agent. So these things are year to year. Every year is different. So just have a year-to-year contract. Solved. No problem. So, then on other news, so Deebo Samuel, he got traded, or he's going to get traded after everything becomes official, from the 49ers to the Washington Commanders. So I'll start with the Commanders thing. You get him. Look, as y'all know, I'm in the DC area, and if you're a Commanders fan, then you just have to love this move because this is a signal of the team going for it. They had a season that was not expected. I think most people around here, if you talk to them, they expected the Commanders would be better. There's already more hope just for the simple fact Daniel Snyder is long gone, and you have Josh Harris, Magic Johnson's on the group as well, so there's already some hope that things were going to get better. Of course, being able to draft Jaden Daniels as your franchise quarterback, you saw the rookie year he had, unprecedented rookie year, leading the team to the NFC Championship game before bowing out to the Eagles. A lot of things came unexpectedly. They were probably a year early in terms of competition or competing for a division crown or a Super Bowl crown. But here they are, and bringing Deebo Samuel to the team signals they're going for it. Now, it depends on what Deebo Samuel you're getting. Are you getting the one who struggled a little bit last year, or are you getting the one who was known as one of the best offensive weapons in football? What was he? The wide back. There we go. Because he was playing a lot of wide receiver and a lot of running back to go along with that. So if you get that guy in Washington, then that is a very, very valuable target to help Terry McLaurin on the other side. And then what do you see? Hold up. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that situation there, and that was the game in Tampa Bay where Deebo was choking kickers. Yeah, so I think that was probably signaled a little bit of the. I won't call it dysfunction, but I think there was probably a little bit of unhappiness and some things that just it kind of ran its course. So I would say it was probably a good time for a change. I mean, I like Debo. I would have liked to see him stay, but sometimes you wear out your welcome, man. It's just time to go your separate ways. So if you get that good version of Debo Samuel, then this is a very good move for the Commanders. On the 49ers side, so now you're looking at things, seeing what direction do you want to be on, or do you want to go in. The the team has had this core group together for a good little while now, and I'm talking about, well, along with Debo before he got traded, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, um, some of those members on the offensive line. You've had this core group together for a little while, and you've had a good run of success. Excuse me. You've been to two Super Bowls, getting beat by the Chiefs in both of those Super Bowls. You had leads in fourth quarters of both of them, just came up short there. You made it to another couple of years. You made it to the NFC Championship game, lost to the Rams and won, lost to the Eagles the next year. And now you have to decide what you're going to do with Brock Purdy. Are you going to give him what the market value says? The market value would have Purdy getting a 50 to 55 million a year contract. Don't know if he's that good, but what I feel like with Purdy is he would take a lesser amount of money. And when I say lesser amount of money, maybe 40 to 45 million. But he seems like the guy or a guy who would take less money to keep to help the team build around him if he's going to get that long-term deal. So, I mean, you could do what Tom Brady did all those years with the Patriots, and later when he went to Tampa Bay, take less money because look, we know how successful Brady was. He had all those Super Bowl rings, and he could have easily went in there and said, "Look, give me the highest paid contract," but he didn't. He would leave some money on the table for the team to go get other guys. They with Tampa Bay, we famously remember, had enough money, they could sign Rob Gronkowski, they could sign Antonio Brown before Antonio Brown went way off the left field. And you can build around Brady to help him and the team make a run to a Super Bowl. And they were able to win that Super Bowl in 2020. So Purdy strikes me as that guy. I mean, I think with him understanding he was Mr. Irrelevant, the final pick of the 2022 draft, and now he's the starting quarterback for one of the most storied franchises in the history of the NFL. I'm pretty sure he would be cool with taking a little bit of a discount, a hometown discount. And yeah, it'd be about 40, 45 million. But some change for the team to go and get some other people. I don't know, like Devontae Adams, maybe, if he's going to go, if he's not going to stay with the New York Jets. But you can have that money to go and get some other people, get some other weapons, maybe make some adjustments to the defense, improve the offensive line. Just things that's going to keep the 49ers competitive. That core is still good. Kyle Shanahan is still a good coach. I wonder about the play calling sometimes from Kyle Shanahan, but overall, he's a good coach. So there's still a lot there in San Francisco to compete for Super Bowl berth. The Eagles, of course, is the class right now. The Commanders are good. The Rams within the division are good. We'll see what Seattle and even Arizona does within the division, but there's still something to be to hold your head up high about with the 49ers. So that is what's going on in the NFL. And of course, next week, as all this stuff becomes legal, I guess, then or official, then everything else will start to fall into place. Saquon Barkley was able to he got a contract was like 2 years, $41 million, makes him the highest paid running back in NFL history. And we had talked about that, how I'm happy for Saquon Barkley, and I'm also happy for all the running backs because the running backs have been a devalued position for whatever reason. But there are still, to this day, excuse me, there are still to this day very, very good special running backs out there. I don't care how much the position has been devalued. There are still very, very good running backs out there. And if they are proving it on the field, they deserve to get their payday and they deserve to get what's coming to them. So good on Saquon Barkley for turning this into a success story. And, ooh, man, if you're a New York Giants fan. So good for Saquon, and I think he'll be continue to be the cornerstone for an Eagles team that is really really loaded, and they're not losing a whole bunch. I heard that they're going to release the corner Darius Slay, so he can still play a good game, and we'll see where he ends up signing with. But anyone who does need a corner, they bring him in there. He can still cover. He's still good in the run game or run support, and he can bring some veteran leadership to a young secondary and make a difference on a contending team. But other than that, the Eagles are bringing pretty much everybody back from the team that won the Super Bowl. So let's head on over to the NBA, and there's been some unfortunate injury news. Starting with Kyrie Irving, the guard for the Dallas Mavericks. He is out for the year with the torn ACL. So I saw the injury and the way the knee just bent back. It looked really, really bad. But after that injury, he stayed out there to shoot the free throws, the 2 free throws that were coming from the foul. I'm sure it reminded a lot of people of what Kobe Bryant did, the late Kobe Bryant did when he had the Achilles injury in, I think that was 2013. And, Aaron, we're going to get on the Mavs GM. Remember when Kobe tore his Achilles and then he stayed out there to shoot the free throws, and Kyrie Irving did the same thing last night, and unfortunately he's done for the year with the torn ACL. So Aaron had brought up the Mavs GM, Nico Harrison, and this has been a bad month of events for Nico and the Dallas Mavericks as a whole, and how quickly things can change when in an instant. This team went to the NBA Finals last year, lost to the Boston Celtics, but it was thought with a lot of the players returning, with a couple of moves, Dallas could possibly be right back in the NBA Finals discussion, if not back in that spot again. But they trade Luka Doncic to the LA Lakers, and then as he was gone, and I live in Dallas Fort Worth. For those who are new to the show, I lived in Dallas Fort Worth before I came up here to DC, and the whole thing with Luka's weight and him not being in shape, that has always been a topic of discussion. That's nothing new. That is something that has always been on the top of minds of the media and some of the fans as well. But even with that, the dude's still all NBA player. So if he did get into shape, just imagine if he was in better shape. But be as it may, he was still good enough to help the Mavs get to a Western Conference Finals in 2022 before going out to the Golden State Warriors, the eventual NBA champions that year, and they made it to the NBA Finals. So now you trade him out, and you're basically kicking him while he's down. It was pretty bad to hear. If you want to say the man might have been out of shape, okay, cool. But they were pretty much trashing the dude going out, and even with him being a little bit out of shape, again, y'all had a lot of success with him, and he's one of the best players in the NBA. So now he's gone. the front office, they're doubling down, saying, "Well, we think defense is going to win championships." And look, I mean, look, I like defense too. Um, I, I don't think there's enough of it being played these days, and maybe this is just me being a get off my lawn guy. But yeah, when you can lock someone down, and even when you get into those later stages, yes, you have to be able to defend. You are not going to win a championship being one dimensional, hoping you can just outscore everybody. You have to bring some defense somewhere. And yeah, Mavs GM, yeah, maybe he is becoming the new Daniel Snyder. It's not looking good. Um, but after kicking Luka Doncic out, then you decide to raise ticket prices. And this is a very upset and heated fan base from that trade. I mean, they were just reselling their ticket package. If you were a season ticket, if they were season ticket holders, you had people trying to resell their tickets because they didn't want those tickets anymore if Luka wasn't going to be there. And now you have this injury for Kyrie Irving. So this team went from one that was looked at as a contender for the championship to their season is over, like totally over. So Anthony Davis, he still hasn't came back. Of course, he was the other person part of that trade that came from the Lakers to the Mavs. He hasn't played since his debut game. They have injuries to their other big men, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, and then they traded Quentin Grimes away. Quentin Grimes just scored 40-something points for the Philly 76ers the other night. So, yeah, not a good look right now for Nico Harrison. And I don't know. I mean, it sounds like the ownership group, they're happy with him. So I don't think he's going to get fired anytime soon. But it could become pretty toxic there. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But very, very unfortunate injury to Kyrie Irving. And then we'll see what happens with them, because I mean, there's a contract situation with him going forward as well. This is he's in the middle of a 3-year deal, I believe, and with that injury, I don't know what the Mavs are going to do, if they're going to keep him in there or if Kyrie's going to opt in. I don't know the specifics of the deal, but there is a contract situation coming up with him, and he is getting up there in age. He's coming up on 33 years old. And as it was, he was playing a lot of minutes in these games because of the injuries and how shorthanded the Mavericks have been. So, that devastating blow for the Mavericks. And it's been a really bad month for them. And then I mentioned the Philly 76ers. So with Joel Embiid, he's getting shut down for the rest of the year. And it's just been a pretty bad year for the 76ers, too. They started with high hopes. They were able to sign Tyrese Maxey to a long-term deal. They had signed Paul George to a long-term deal. That one, I still don't understand why they did that. I think that's one of the worst deals they could have done. But there was a lot of hope going into the season. The Philly had a triplet, a 3-headed monster that could compete with teams like the Boston Celtics, trying to knock them off their perch as the defending NBA championships. Obviously, it has not gone that way. Joel Embiid, as it was playing every other game, if that, and the knee issue became very bothersome to the point where I guess he thinks there might need to be more surgery done on the knee. So probably a good decision to shut him down. Excuse me. Probably a good decision to shut him down because he was playing every other game, and it was always about pain management. And then when he was in there, he was getting hurt there. He had excuse me, I think he had like a facial fracture So he could never really stay healthy at all. And I think it might be time. I don't know if they're going to do this. And I don't know if this would be the right way to go, but maybe it might be time to start building the Sixers around Tyrese Maxey and make them a little bit more guard oriented. Um, you You've had Joel Embiid there. This was the guy that was supposed to be the long-term answer. Remember the trust the process days, and it's been mixed reviews. And then when healthy, Joel Embiid is one of the best players in the league, no doubt about it. As a matter of fact, he won the MVP back in 2023 for the season. So it's not like he hasn't shown flashes of being really, really good. When he's in there, he can dominate. He can, and he's really skilled. He can hit the three. He can hit your mid range. He's got a good post game, as we know, and he's one of the most complete players in the league. He's good on defense as well, when healthy. But he hasn't been healthy enough, and as a big guy getting older, it's hard to continue to build your team around a guy who you're not really sure is going to be even available for half of the season, particularly in a league where it is more uh, spread out on the offensive end. Um, yes, Aaron. Yeah, very, very injured has Embiid been, and it's hard to build your team. Or yeah, it's hard to build around a guy who you don't know if he's going to be available. Um, and in this league where you have players who, I love the effort, Eric. When you have guys spreading out around the court, it is made for spacing, it is made for movement, and a big guy who has trouble moving on normal terms against the more skilled, the quicker big guys. It's going to get a little bit harder as he gets older, and it might be something for the 76ers brass to think about to start building this team more around what Tyrese Maxey's strengths are. I don't know if they're ready to do that yet. I could see them still trying to give it a go with Joel Embiid. The hope is once he does have the surgery, I think it's headed in that direction where he's going to have the surgery and try to clean out whatever is ailing that knee. And then see if you can come back. He's a little bit more healthier with what Tyrese Maxey is doing. I don't have a lot of faith in Paul George. I don't think Paul George is going to do anything anyway. You also lost the rookie, McCain, for the season as well. So that hurt the 76ers. Let's see what Aaron says. They just couldn't put it together. Yeah. It's just the Sixers are just one of those franchises where it looks like they are close, but I think the management, just like what Aaron was pointing out with the Mavs management, they can mess up a good thing. And I think getting Paul George, that was a terrible deal. A terrible deal. Paul George has not been that great of a player. He's been overrated, and he's good. And I guess the way where they were bringing him in, he was a third. He's going to be probably the third player behind Maxey and Embiid. But I mean, at this point, I don't even know if he does that. If he can do that, and I don't. I guess now he says he wants to stop doing his podcast. I mean, maybe he should have been doing that a long time ago. But but yeah, the Sixers they're one of those teams where they can't get right, and the situation for them, there's not a lot they can do. They're in a lot of trouble. And when I say a lot of trouble, I mean huge trouble, because they don't really have the assets to get better as a team. So they are stuck with what they have right now, and I don't see a team that would come close to trading for Joel Embiid. So if you're trying to recoup some assets, I don't know who they're going to send out to try to get those assets, especially when all those dudes, particularly Embiid and George, have these gargantuan contracts, and they're either not healthy or not that good. So I think the 76ers are in huge, huge trouble. But hearing about Embiid being shut down for the season, again, I think that is probably the best thing. The Sixers aren't really going anywhere. I know they're talking like they can make a run play in, but if they do get into the play in, I don't think they're going far. I definitely don't think they're making the playoffs. So if I'm proven wrong, then I'll be right back here to say that I was wrong. No big deal, but I just don't see it with the Sixers. So finally, before we hop on out, I wanted to point out something for Major League Baseball, because they just had a split of their contract with ESPN. So the Major League Baseball, and I really don't like the fact Patrick is on the show, even though it's for a very good reason why he's not on the show. But y'all know Patrick is a baseball guy. Baseball is his favorite sport. So maybe we'll circle back next week when he's on the show and we'll ask him about this topic. But the MLB, they split with ESPN. ESPN had ED rights with MLB for 35 years, and they had a deal that I think was supposed to go till 2028, but that deal has been axed. And after this year, Major League Baseball won't be seen on ESPN anymore. So what does that mean for the two parties involved? Well, for Major League Baseball, they're in this spot where they're trying to figure out how they can get the game more marketable. The players are there. If you watch the sport, there's a lot of good players there in Major League Baseball, but they don't get marketed enough or efficiently enough. There's a big marketing problem in Major League Baseball. And if you're not in the local market, so let's take Shohei Ohtani for an example, or you could point to, of course, he plays for the Dodgers. You could take Aaron Judge in New York, or you could take Ronald Acuna Jr. in Atlanta. You can look at these players, and unless it is inside those local markets, not a lot of people know them. It's not like how it is in the NFL or in the NBA, where you can walk around and see one of these players and you instantly recognize them. It's not like that with the Major League Baseball players. It is hard to recognize. Like if someone's walking down the street, a lot of times they might not even know who that player is. And there's a few you probably know who Shohei is. You probably know who Aaron Judge is. I mean, Aaron Judge is 7. It's pretty hard to miss. But outside of that, you really don't have to have following like you would, and you're trying to figure out. Yeah, love it. So Aaron said, "Let's let the players run the bases in either direction." I love that. Anything to try to spice it up, and I think over the years, they have tried to make the game more pleasing to the viewer, adding the pitch clock to speed up the games a little bit. The viewership has gone up slightly, but it's not the same. Back in the day, back in the 90s, remember, baseball was America's pastime. This was the most popular sport in America. And now it might be third, maybe fourth, but it's definitely not in the top two with football and basketball. More on that in a minute when we talk about the ESPN side of things. But they've had this dispute with the regional networks, Valley Sports, the Diamond Sports Group. And now they have a contract with Apple TV where they have some Friday Night Baseball, and of course they got the MLB Network. Now, what I believe is either Fox or Turner Sports, which has TBS under their umbrella. Right? Well, actually, so it's Warner Brothers Discovery that owns all the Turner stuff, TBS, TNT, and I could see them maybe hyping that up for baseball, maybe picking up the Sunday night package and the wild card package ESPN is currently holding right now. Maybe Fox does more to pick it up as well. So I think there's some networks that will help pick up that slack for MLB, but it just has to be one of those things. Of course, the commissioner, Rob Manfred, just want to make sure that it's something that's going to be lucrative for both parties involved. And, a lot of money is within the TV rights, but the viewers, outside of the last couple of years, when the pitch clock had been in and they made a few adjustments to bring some offensive numbers up, it's been a struggle for Major League Baseball to maintain those viewers. So they're going to have to figure some things out. On the ESPN side, what this is to me is they were going to cut, according to some sources, starting with the Wall Street Journal, the Sports Business Journal had reported this as well, awful announcing too. ESPN was going to cut. They wanted to cut a lot of the money that was going out for Major League Baseball and their TV rights. They were by $300 million. They weren't trying to have more than $200 million. As a matter of fact, let me see. Let me bring this up here real quick. They wanted to cut that deal by at least more than half, and they didn't want to give more than $200 million per year, and I think they were in excess of $500 million a year for the current contract. So ESPN was trying to cut that, according to these reports, and really, look, ESPN, if you're not the big three money grabbers now, so that is the NFL, the NBA, and college football. If you're not there, then ESPN is going to cut everywhere else. Now, yes, I know they got a deal with the NHL as well that they had just locked into a few years ago, but ESPN's bulk of the money is going to go to the NFL, college football playoff, that huge contract they signed with the SEC to have their games for another 9-10 years or whatever it is. And then the big deal they have with the NBA that's going to kick off next year when NBC is going to be part of the NBA deal, and so is Amazon. So that's where ESPN's money is going. It's going to those leagues. It's going to their big money talent as well. So because they're trying to cut in other spots to make sure they can maintain the right to all these contracts that they're signing with these other leagues, then there's going to be some more cuts across the board. And some of the producers, some of the directors, some of the people behind the scenes are probably going to be losing their jobs, unfortunately, because that's what happens when you put so much money into these TV rights. You got to cut somewhere. And in this case, it wasn't even people who work at ESPN. You're cutting out a deal that you had with Major League Baseball going back to 1989. And it's kind of sad to see, because I remember watching those games back in the day. Those who remember the announcer Gary Thorne when he was doing those Friday night games on ESPN, I mean, there's some nostalgic value there. And now all that is gone because people are trying to see where they can get more money. And it's just sad. It's a reflection of where sports is headed where the viewership is headed and where it's all about. It sounds like a movie. Jerry Maguire, like show me the money, basically is where it's at. But yeah, it's just sad to kind of see these things happen, all for the big money chase. And with ESPN, of course, like I said, they're trying to have their money invested into the NFL, college, the NBA. And if it's not dealing with that or some of their big money talent that's over there hosting these shows, then they're not really going to deal with it, and they're going to cut elsewhere to make sure they can keep that deal. So, sad case, sad case. So with that, that will conclude this edition of the BOFA Sports Webcast. That is what I am breathing on for tonight. So y'all make sure y'all visit the BOFA Sports YouTube channel, smash that subscribe button if you haven't already, and follow the BOFA Sports Facebook page. So again, Patrick was with his son celebrating his birthday. So again, happy birthday to Patrick's son, and he should be back next week. Until then, I hope everybody enjoyed this my solo performance here. I hope I did all right. Aaron, thanks for coming on in with the comments and keeping the conversation going. And other than that, everybody take care. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk soon. Take care.